Hello, welcome to the Powerful Introvert Podcast. I'm Greg Weinger. I'm here today with Mitch Webb. Mitch is a leading nervous system and holistic health coach. He's dedicated to helping high performers, entrepreneurs, and any individuals struggling with chronic symptoms and helping them to regain their health by addressing the root causes of disease, unresolved trauma, and nervous system deregulation. Welcome, Mitch. We discussed this before, and also for maybe people who are just listening, if you were watching the video, someone might not be able to help but noticing you don't necessarily present the same way as most holistic health coaches. You mentioned you work in a practice where you're one of three men, just three guys out of 40 people total. So what's the typical reaction you get when people find out about what you do?
I love the observation, first off. I got some deer heads hanging in the back. I've got kind of a meathead look, if you will. And, it's who I am. I like to be authentic and show up as me. And I'm definitely not pretending over here, though that is something I would have done in the past, But I love it. I love that description that I can hold off to coaches. I think that makes me more approachable to the right person. I kind of think of myself sometimes as like the Joe Rogan of the mental and emotional health world. And, I'm a complex being. So I love hunting and sport and being silly. And also I love crying and try to go as much of this stuff as I can. So yeah, I appreciate that observation.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic. I love your style. If you're not seeing it, there's some great deer heads and other artifacts on the wall. And, I think that's great that you're showing that you don't have to look a certain way, be a certain way to take your emotions and past trauma seriously.
Men deserve to heal, all types of men.
Amen. And there's a number of cultural commentaries here. There's these ideas we have, which has led men to kind of ignore and try to stiff up our lip, gut through, pretend that we don't have all these emotions going on. And this also speaks to the amount of transformation that you've gone through. You've obviously done a lot of work like anyone has who's made progress in this area. But my understanding also is that you've come to this line of work more recently. Can you tell us a bit more about where you grew up and how you grew up?
Here in the South, I'm in North Carolina, and a pretty normal kid, played a lot of sports and didn't have a lot of cares or worries. Things changed whenever I had a really bad accident. I fell out of a second-story window, and the symptoms exploded after that. I started experiencing anxiety, insomnia, end up having autoimmune issues. Later down the road, black mold and Lyme disease, heavy metals, diabetes. It's like this snowball. I got another car accident. I had long haul COVID 3 times. And it's just like I went from this pretty robust, I must say perfect. I don't think anything's perfect, but this system where nothing was going on. And then all of a sudden having these symptoms that didn't make sense to me. I didn't know what the word anxiety was. My upbringing taught me to never quit and, especially sports. And so when I got some of these diagnoses and I just wasn't feeling good, I dove into it with everything I have and gave everything I got. And, like more recently, this happened. All this stuff happened when I was 20 years old. And probably 4 or 5 years ago, I was really hitting a wall. And we started a men's group, and some guys pulled me aside and said, hey, you've got some trauma. And I thought, the only people that have trauma is war veterans and people in, really horrible situations. And so that was news to me, and it changed my life. It continues to change my life. Like, by no means am I perfect or healed, but I've made more progress in the last couple of years than I ever thought was possible. And things like you're getting rid of food sensitivity, some energy back, sleep certainly being better. And ultimately, I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me for so long. And through this work, found that early developmental trauma was a big part of this. And that's why it's hard to identify. I didn't come from a horrible family, or there was no abuse. It was really little things that added up. Just realized that I never felt safe in my whole life. And so that's what I've been working on. And, some of the personas that I've taken on that we've already kind of called out, that was a big defense tactic, right? Like I can put on muscle, I can be the tough guy, I can be really good at sports, and that's how I'm going to get love. Not want to challenge me, or it made me feel safe by controlling these different things. And so I love this work. I'm a big believer that if you're the kind of person you've tried everything, you've got chronic symptoms that don't go away, they shift, and maybe you've got different labels that you've given yourself, like really look at this dysregulation stuff, because the nervous system touches so many systems in our body, and when it's off, that's going to create symptoms. And what I've seen and what I did for so long is this chasing of symptoms and trying to fix something that's not broken. It's actually really intelligent for the things that we've been through in our life. It's showing up exactly as we are, and if you're not feeling good, then it's time to address that. And that's certainly possible and doable. And it makes a whole lot more sense to me than chasing these labels and symptoms that, don't really go away. You treat the root cause and the whole system starts to improve.
That must be confusing. All this kind of presented for you as a series of different ailments, and they can seem really disconnected and probably treated that way by the medical establishment. Black mold, it's really hard to pin down through a medical diagnosis. And then it sounds like you had the support of some mentorship there through that men's group.
I run a group called Men on a Journey here in Raleigh, North Carolina. We meet once a month. It's just a safe space for men to show up and talk about what we're going through. We tend to suppress things and push it down and act out there, and maybe if we don't talk about it, it'll go away. And meanwhile, this tension is just building under the surface, and it's why you see so many men with mental health issues and exploding and violence in the home. It's because all those emotions are under the surface and they're wanting to come out. We can only suppress that so long and explode. And we started this group, myself and two of my friends. I kind of got pulled in at the last minute. What's kind of funny about that for me now looking back is I remember thinking, I'm going to help these poor bastards that have health issues. And I thought I was going to help with nutritional deficiencies. I thought, because I have the background in coaching, health coaching and nutrition movement, and I was into all the detox and biohacks, and that stuff is foundational. It's important, but I didn't understand what trauma was. I didn't understand a dysregulated nervous system. I'm reading the book, The Body Keeps the Score at the time, and it talks about how we carry, the title says it, right? We suppress and we carry all these emotions and sensations and symptoms, and it's a result of trauma. And I remember two things specifically about that as I got to the childhood trauma stuff, and because I had, loving parents that did the best they could, they put a roof over my head, they paid for everything, paid for my college. I remember seeing the childhood trauma section and just like flipping past it and being like, that's ridiculous, that's not me. And that's also showing how our intelligent nervous system, our brain, keeps things out of our awareness that we're not ready to see and process. And so I'm sharing a little bit about the book in the group in the first meeting. I'm talking about a situation with my dad. The way I responded, you could call that toxic masculinity. Like I'm going to physically overwhelm him or whatever. And I thought that was cool. And some guys pulled me aside at the end, and they're like, "Hey, you're reading that book, Body Keeps the Score." And yeah. He's like, the example in there is your way you answer questions and things you're saying, that's letting me know that you're traumatized. And that was news to me. I'm so thankful for the guy that pulled me aside and was vulnerable enough for me to say that. And that began my journey. I started looking for therapists and eventually found my mentor, Irene Lyon, that I've been just finished a year-long mentorship with her. And, some things started happening quick and other things are taking time, but it's what I've been looking for the last 20 years. And I think it's a big root cause for many people.
That's a great story, and it's kind of beautiful how that all unfolded. And I think that for people who are able to go deeper and try to seek out deeper healing, it does start out with the symptoms and understanding the root causes of that. It was certainly that way for me in terms of biohacking, measuring everything, my sleep with the ring and all my steps and all the movements. And, you kind of start going down a certain path. And if you get to a certain point, you're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
how can I go deeper?
Eating good is difficult, we know, especially here in the US. And it's one of those things where if you're not doing it right, you're not eating food that's appropriate for you, you're eating fake, and we can list all those out. It's detrimental to your health. And then if you're eating really good, you're going from one end to the other, it's amazing. It's just foundational, right? And those things certainly helped me. I'm so grateful for them. It gave me a sense of control, which felt like safety when I didn't know what safety actually felt like. And it just depends on where we're at. Some people can just do the basics. They can eat better, they can move better, they can get outside and ground and get sunlight and maybe block blue light at nighttime, be more concerned about their environment and maybe do a little bit of detoxing and they're fine. And there's those of us that have deeper issues. And that was certainly me. All these things helped and they were foundational in my journey. And I just still felt off, and I knew there was something more for me.
You just said something that really resonated with me. It was like, this was before I knew what safety actually felt like, because there's what we think is safe, and then there's safety. How would you describe, if you could put into words?
Come from the angle of like, what's dysregulation feel like, and like what's a survival mode, and then coming out of that. I'll be honest, I'm still working on that, and I get peaks of it. So the way that it happens now is it's kind of waves, where it used to be just a shit show all the time, and now it's waving, which is great. It's moving. This stuff takes time. But the analogy that I give is it's like being held underwater your whole life. And, when you're underwater, what's it like? You're moving slow. Things may be muted. Certainly if you're looking up at the environment that's out here, it's blurry. It's maybe there's pressure and constriction. Just this sense of like, I need something. And we just don't even know what that is until we come out and you just, and you take that breath and it feels like life. One thing that really has shifted for me is my eyesight. Everything is really pretty. Everything is in like HD and very vivid. And, you can look around in the world and we can say, oh man, there's a lot of crazy, horrible stuff going on. And absolutely there is. But man, if I look out my window right now, it's a beautiful day, and most days are. And especially the more that we come into our body and start to recognize these things, it's like, I don't understand what everybody else is talking about sometimes. Now, I do understand bad things, but I choose not to focus on that as much. I try to focus on what I can control and continue to work on this process of coming out of this survival mode. I mean, so many of us are there, if not all of us. And it's a journey. And I'd say the juice is worth the squeeze based on what I've experienced so far. It's just getting my life back is what it feels like.
Yeah, I hear you on that. It's a journey. You don't get this all the time, but you get enough glimpses and recurring glimpses where, okay, that's the place you want to be.
I got one story. It's funny working with my mentors. I read Lion, Seth Lion, and in the beginning, I didn't know if I could believe you don't have to feel anxiety all the time, this intense activation or shutdown, fatigue. And every time some of my older mentors would say, like, I used to have anxiety, I would pause them and I'd be like, you just said used to, so you had that. You have this intense fire that I have in my body that keeps me up at night, that makes my head spin with thoughts, and you don't have that anymore. And, that's because I didn't believe it. I didn't know if that was actually possible. And now that I've experienced that, I know it's possible. It's certain for someone who's deaf for many years, and that's my clients. They've tried everything and nothing seems to work. Like just knowing that it's possible and starting to trust that in our body, that we can handle things. That's what building safety is. It's all about self-trust, like that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And I say that because I needed to hear that over and over and over again, that this is possible in the beginning.
Yeah, sometimes you need the trust of a mentor. You need someone who can kind of help you bridge that chasm. And that was certainly the case for me, having a mentor who could create space that was safe enough where I could allow myself to try it or to let go in a sense. And then I remember recalling something similar, like I could actually feel this good, the absence of anxiety. It didn't seem possible. I had memories of it from when I was a kid of feeling that level of safety in their kind of peak moments, but I hadn't felt that as an adult.
What we're talking about, like people think that, dysregulation is being stuck, right? Like I'm stuck in activation, anxiety, hypervigilance, or I'm stuck in, a freeze state where I'm shutting down, I can't feel, I'm numb, or I'm oscillating between those two. And so what we're not saying here is that healing is not about being calm. It's about building more capacity so that I can be with the intensity of the human experience without shutting down, without disconnecting from myself. And so I still experience big activation. I still experience shutdown. And the more capacity I grow, the better those things are. And I was on a podcast with a friend of mine yesterday, and we were talking about how things have shifted for us. And so if you're someone that's had crazy anxiety, you feel like you're jumping out of your skin, you can't sit still or you can't sleep, it's completely possible to heal this stuff. And it's one step at a time, but it does not mean that things are calm. It just means that now we can handle life more, instead of collapsing.
That's a great point. You develop these tools and the capacities.
What my friend and I were laughing about was different. I used to be so afraid of that activation. I mean, it would make me just tremble when I'd feel, especially if it wakes me up in the middle of the night. Now, I cheer it on. I get excited. It's like, because, what also happens as you do this work, let's say we've been in fight or flight our whole life. We've been running from a tiger on a hamster wheel that never stops, and stepping off of that hamster wheel and feeling how exhausted your body is from running from a tiger your whole life, that's tired. And so you'll experience levels of fatigue, activation in our brain, and I used to be afraid of that. And now I know that when we go into a shutdown response, there's a lot of sympathetic activation underneath that. And so if I've been shut down, I'm feeling fatigued, whether that's from doing emotional work or just being on this journey. And now I know, because I learned that's such a big, important part of this work is education. So now my higher brain knows and associates this activation with, oh man, I'm coming out of shutdown. So there's like this new level and new layers, and that's what healing is. It's not, linear, it's more circular. And we revisit these patterns. We're never the same person that we were 6 months ago. But if we don't know, and if our mind doesn't know that this is actually a good thing, then it can keep us stuck. And so that's why education is so important.
Thanks for walking us through that, from that awful feeling of you wake up in the middle of the night and you just had like a shot of adrenaline, and sometimes you don't know why. And then if this goes on for a period of weeks, that you get into this feeling of exhaustion. And so this kind of brings up the topic of the nervous system. And you mentioned you focus a lot on the nervous system as the point of entry in your work. So maybe just to back it up a little bit, what is this connection between these feelings in our body and disease?
It's so different for everyone, right? Like I see this as like a 5D thing, right? That's what healing is. It's not about one thing. It's not about just nutrition or treating your body well, getting outside, moving, exercising, healthy relationships, engaging with our emotional state. It's really about the person where they're at. That's a big lesson that I learned this year from my mentor is instead of coming in as Mitch, the health coach, I'm going to fix you and we're going to get you right. And I'm going to teach you how to fix this stuff. Because if I come in with an agenda and an intention, your nervous system's going to feel that already. And that's probably something similar to how you were treated as a kid. Maybe you're dismissed, let me show you the right way instead of encouraging you to connect with your body and listen to what it's saying and give it what it needs. And so instead of coming in with that agenda and telling people what to do, ultimately, It's really about listening and meeting people where they're at and getting really clear on what they want, where they're at now, what they've tried, what's worked, what hasn't, and allow them to feel their own impulse. And so when we really slow down the conversation and kind of put that all on the table, well, then together we make a plan of action and we start to execute that. And where somebody starts, it's low hanging fruit. They're going to tell me through conversation what they are ready for and what makes the most sense for them. So if they're a level 1 person, I don't want to take them to level 5 and drop them in the deep end of the pool. So that may be a hybrid approach where they're working on a couple of different things, really one thing at a time, so that we can really get feedback and awareness around, what's actually helping. And so someone may start with the nutrition department, someone may start with, getting outside and getting some sunlight, foot on the ground, and maybe turning their Wi-Fi off at nighttime. Somebody else may need some detox. Another person may have all that foundational stuff on board, and it's very clear that they're dysregulated, but they're not listening to their body. When we have trauma, we disconnect. We have quit listening. We're listening to everyone else. And if you're like me, you've tried everything. You're looking for somebody to heal me and tell me how to do it right, which doing it right is an illusion. That often comes from an environment where if we didn't get it right, then we were going to be punished. So that's a trauma response in its own. And so really very slowly pack these things, start to build awareness around ourselves, around our environmental habit. Oh, I didn't know I'm a people pleaser. I feel my body. I feel numb. And all those things are things that I'm going to hear from clients. And so again, we don't jump into the deep end of the pool. We go really slow. We build awareness with the body. We learn to follow our impulse. And as we learn to sit with and observe ourselves, and the body starts to feel safe, the more things will bubble up that we weren't ready for earlier. Your nervous system's map. You don't have to figure it out. I certainly have that pattern. I wanted to figure it out. I wanted to understand because uncertainty was very scary to me. And now I'm more and more just about trusting my body, my nervous system, that what's meant to show up today is going to show up. And the more I can trust that, the less I'm gripping and controlling. And it's more about letting go and allowing. And eventually that safety comes on board.
It sounds like a theme that I hear in wellness practices, generally speaking. There's this element of trust in the body, trusting your deeper self, not your thinking mind, to bring up what you're ready to process or deal with. There's this natural force in the body that if you would just allow it to, is trying to heal and has the wisdom.
As long as we can go, it's going to do its job. But we have so much conditioning on top of that. Where does trauma come from? It comes from generations before us. We say there's bad stuff going on in the world, but man, there's a lot more worse stuff going on before this. You have all this technology, but we're still animals. And it's all about awareness and unpacking that. But once you can start listening and working with the body, it'll show up and it recognizes that. It's like, oh man, Mitch is really paying attention and checking in with me and seeing what I want and really paying attention to things. And that's going to feel good. It's like a little kid that's been forced outside and it's been knocking at the door. It's raining, it's cold out there, and it's been knocking forever. And we're telling it to go away. So when we start paying attention and listening and responding, it starts responding too, and it starts giving us more. And the body wants to heal. We just have a society and a culture with so many things that go against our biology, our physiology, and really wreck our nervous system. Things like all the things I'm teaching, it's poor food choices. It's living in fake environments where we don't have proper lighting. We don't get outside and get in the sun. We're not connected to the earth. Maybe we do want to take care of our body, but we're punishing it in the gym. We're really telling ourselves that we're not good enough and we're trying to be perfect and we're trying to please others instead of ourselves. We're outsourcing all of our wisdom and our intuition to other people. And we wonder why the body is like, what are you doing? We're so disconnected from ourselves, from our power, Big part of healing is listening and responding to that, because if you can do that, if you can follow your impulse, your body will heal you. You don't need anybody to heal you, and that's good because nobody's coming to save you.
When you describe it like that, you're wondering, how could
Yeah,
we
I mean,
be
it's
healthy?
it's stressed out,
Yeah.
separated from your power, from your community, and to be controlled through less than optimal input all around us.
I was thinking of some examples of people who are at different stages of healing, and we've already described the people who are uncomfortable but not at an extreme. Do you deal with people who are dealing with more severe disease? I have a friend going through cancer diagnosis and they're doing all the medical treatments, just a lot of anxiety. How would you approach somebody like that? So something that's life-threatening.
In that situation, I treat it like anything else. It makes a lot of sense. And if someone is going through a lot of anxiety, especially facing a diagnosis or a near-death experience type of situation where they're a fear for their life, that sounds pretty stressful right out the gate. And we just want to validate that and know that that's normal. And then, we would go really, really slow. This is called titration and doing little bits. But ultimately, we want to make the journey from the head and go more into the body, because that's where the wisdom is. And traditional to mental health, they're going to be more psychological and thinking, and that can even lead to more re-traumatization of just reviewing this horrible situation over and over. We're already doing enough of that in our daily life. Let's start to connect with the body. A thing that we typically do as humans is we're wired for comfort, right? And if there's discomfort, we tend to want to move away from it. And that is the exact opposite of this work. It's really about moving towards it and really accepting and allowing even this body that is diseased, that this is allowed and this makes sense. And I really like the German medicine approach to illness that says the body is not sick, the body is not broken, that symptoms, we're taught to put a Band-Aid on it, to take a pill every time we have a symptom. And really, it kind of flipped it because it's saying there's nothing wrong with your body, that symptoms are either a conflict that's active and that's healing, or a conflict in the body that's resolved and it's a healing. And so instead of saying something wrong with me, it's accepting and allowing where I'm at, and then meeting the body and saying, like, what's going on? Where do I feel that in my body? Well, I feel it feels tight. It feels like I can't breathe. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, is there an image that comes to mind? Yeah, it's like a band that feels like it's around my chest, like it's squeezing me. Like, oh yeah, I get that. Is there an emotion that you feel with that? And as we tap into it, there may be a bunch. There's grief, there's fear, there's worry, there's terror, all these things. So we would work with those parts, would work with those emotions, those sensations, would go into them and just see, what does the body want from me? When we start to show up, and instead of trying to fix it and change it and make it go away, it's all about intention. Are you eating this salad because deep down you want this thing to go away as fast as possible? Well, that's dismissing and pushing away. But how can I move towards it? Am I eating, or am I just going to sit down and meet myself and say, like, what do you need? A lot of times for me, my body just says, like, I want you to be patient with me. I want you to love me. I want you to hold me. And so it's really about the head and the thinking our way to safety, the controlling through all different practices, and meeting what's there today, allowing that, loving that, seeing what it wants. It's creating this relationship. And because that part of you that is sick and diseased, that is worried and freaking out and scared, that's the part that needs you the most, and it probably has for a really long time. And now we're finally paying attention. And so that's a huge opportunity for healing there.
Yeah, thanks for walking through that example. That really brings that to life. So another aspect of what you're doing, dealing with trauma, you're not going to replay it. You're not intentionally trying to replay it in that sense, because it might be re-traumatizing. What you're really trying to do is kind of cut the images or the thoughts around it out of the equation and just address it at an emotional level, which is not intuitive for people growing up here. And then just spending time with it and bringing a level of care to that area, listening or tuning into that and seeing what arises naturally.
Cut out the thoughts. And so that is that's just words, right? And we're just describing this.
Mhm.
But to me, when I hear cut them out, that means get out of here, right? So it's not that we want to not think. Try to not think. Good luck with that, right? Like, especially if you're someone who's ruminating, a result of not being able to connect with our emotions and burning off anger, worry, fear by thinking. The brain consumes the amount of energy that it takes to run a marathon by thinking every day, right? And so if that's all we're focusing on, we can't just say, hey, stop. It's more about how can I engage with that part, meet it, how can I be with it, allow it, accept it, attune to it, see what it needs, and take that with me. So say like someone is really worried, they end up isolating themselves in their house, thinking about this all the time and just wanting to make it go away. Well, that's just avoidance, because I've been there. And I'm saying that because I've done that myself. And, it's more, we're waiting for some perfect moment for us to re-engage with life. And that's not what it's about. It's about taking it with you. So how can I do what I love to do, tired, worried, scared? That also includes sitting on the couch and resting and not feeling guilty about that, right? Like, we just want more agency. We want more choice. We don't want to dismiss or stop any of these parts from speaking. We want them to speak with us. Maybe another thing would be that this is telling us like, oh, I need to think about this all day long. And so we may be aware of that. And we may, hey, part, I hear you. I know you want me to do X, Y, and Z. I feel that urgency. I know that it's survival stress. And so instead of engaging in that, you're going to sit right here with me. So I'm not pushing you away. I'm not dismissing you. It's almost like I do a picture in my mind where this younger party, I'm just sitting there holding it. So how can I take it with me, allow it to be there, know that I can sit in the fire and it's not going to burn me? Because some of these sensations and emotions are habitual, thing that happened in the past that's on repeat because we keep pushing it down, suppressing it, and avoiding it. And when we move towards it, we show it, hey, nothing bad's going to happen here. You're safe. And it sucks. I don't like it. Then the brain starts to make it less of a priority. It's saying, oh, he's really relaxing his body. He's smiling at this activation. He's talking to it. And man, it feels good when he responds to it. So I'm going to downgrade this to less of a priority for the brain and the nervous system. And that's how we kind of turn things down, not make them go away.
You're describing there, I think, what other people refer to as parts work, sometimes known as internal family systems. Is that right?
That would
that's
be
how you
parts work,
those?
somatic tracking. That would be, there's another one. Oh, and it's brain retraining as well. So it's just combining a bunch of different modalities to connect you to yourself, these parts like we're talking about, interact with these sensations that we're feeling in the body, and then give us more choice while educating, because we can kind of understand and we have more options. It's like, okay, I like to work with different nature things, right? So we could think of activation, a bunch of anxiety is like fire. You learn that today, that, fire is good in nature. It burns things away. That activation could be release. It could be things coming out of the body, right? It's not a thing to be afraid of. So if you learn that, fire in the body, it feels like active coming up, it's a good thing, it's actually releasing, well, then I can notice that fear. My first initial reaction may be, oh, get away from me, I'm scared. Maybe I need to run, take a pill or do whatever. And then you stop and you realize, oh yeah, remember that thing Mitch said, that fire is good, it's cleansing. So maybe I can sit with this a little bit longer. Because really, so much of us, and I'm learning this more and more, we just didn't get to take things to completion. So it's kind of like, I picture like a helicopter parent or a parent that's overly empathic sees that their kid is in stress and doesn't want them to be in that because maybe they've experienced that themselves where they have anxiety and it's too much to watch their kids suffer. And so they don't get to experience things going to the top end of the spectrum and they come down. So it's building this capacity to sit with ourselves in the intensity, to know that it's not going to hurt me, and to just love the shit out of it. Meet it with compassion, meet it with curiosity, and know that if I can be with this, then it can calm down. And that's just part of learning emotional wellness and regulation. And so many of us just don't get that as a beginner course to being a human.
That's right. Mitch, I'm so glad that you're here doing this and describing it the way you do. It was really beautifully put, being the Joe Rogan of wellness coaching for men. Maybe you'll have the podcast, but it's great you're out here.
Yeah, man, I podcast. I started
this message out.
Just released my first episode yesterday of the Rooted Conversations podcast. Yeah, just a little celebrating today a little bit.
All right, congratulations. So where can people find your practice?
I knew this was going to be a good one. You can find me on my website, mitchwebb.com. There's a form there for filling out for one-on-one work. There's also a newsletter that goes out that you can subscribe to. You can find me on Mitch Webb on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. And I don't know if I gave you my little free giveaway, some basic nervous system training stuff. Did you get that? Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, I can send that over later.
We'll add it to the notes.
Great. My pleasure.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, man.
All right. Thanks so much for being a guest here today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the opportunity. I enjoyed it.